We review anime totally wrong. I've been pretty transparent for some time that I've stopped scoring things entirely, either through written reviews, videos, or on my anime list. Unless I'm forced to include a number, I will not include one. And usually, if I am forced to include one, it tends to just be some arbitrary number that comes up at that moment when I think, I don't quite like this series too much. It's a bit below average, so I'll give it a 4 because of that. It's not like I create some absurd mathematical equation by scoring each category to the 100th decimal place and weighting the value of each category. To me, that's a waste of time because at the end of the day, the number I do assign to a certain title will only be cause for division. That is to say, I don't think the vast majority of people are doing that, but I do know they're out there. So what exactly does a number score give us when we're reviewing something? From a creative standpoint, I suppose it gives us an easy way to allow our audience to understand if something is good or bad. But subjectively, my meaning of 7 out of 10 may be different from yours. Prior to creating content, I would skip to the end of reviews just for the final verdict to see if something was worth my time or not. And with that taken into account as a creator, why would I include a score if I myself would just skip to the end to find the answer to my question? Surely many others have that exact thought and are impatient enough to do such a thing. Now, I guess it's important to say that including a score doesn't invalidate your review in any way, but it's just something others can latch onto. What's more important is the content of your actual review. A popular review skeleton that I once used even was the category by category system where you would just cover each and every bit of the content being reviewed, starting with, say, the story and the characters, moving on to the music or the animation. There wasn't much fun in constructing the exact same review over and over again with changing small things here and there. And I think to abandon this skeleton, or these conventions, and score, is a way to embrace freedom, in my opinion. I believe in the case of many shows, this sum of the parts approach will either downplay or upplay certain categories, specifically those usually titled animation and sound. Generally, they tend to get glossed over or averaged equally with other categories. Occasionally, you'll see reviews that weight these lower than story and characters, but even that seems to miss the point. Words like memorable and repetitive tend to be thrown around in the music category, and most times, the general review just skips over the original soundtrack in a way that the reviewer might just mention the opening and ending songs, when sound is such a broad category from the voice acting to even the ambiance of the scenes that we see. Animation runs into an inverse issue where people mean many things by just saying animation, from directing, editing, art style, character design, and more. Personally, I don't find myself humming random anime instrumentals that come to me, aside from maybe a few that I can count on one hand. Of course, without these elements existing, the show wouldn't either. They're important ingredients to your overall enjoyment. But I'd rather read a review that mentions a single isolated track, such as, let's say, this song from Food Wars, explaining how the writer gets so excited about the outcome of a competition every time that it plays. Versus, well, yeah, the music is there and it fits and there are a few memorable tracks, but nothing amazing. But in discussion, something like sound can play a huge deal if you're talking about a music-based show like Hibike Euphonium, or a horror story like Another. Less so in a rom-com. Animation techniques might play a bigger deal in action shows like Mob Psycho 100 or sports shows like Haikyuu. Less so in slice of life. Of course, no one wants to watch a show that looks or sounds ugly, but if I downrate Kaguya-sama Love is War due to its soundtrack and not the value of its comedy or how I perceive the power struggle or comedic chemistry between the characters, I think I'd be doing the show a disservice. Likewise, if I downvoted Welcome to the NHK because of the quality of the animation, I'd be missing out on the lessons it has to teach people going through emotional turmoil. Every so often, all of these things come together in such a perfect way and give you a product like Monogatari, where each and every bit of the product is no more important than the next. And that's not to say that anime, being a visual medium, shouldn't strive to be the best in every category, but the reality is that not every show is going to look that good, like Monogatari, One Punch Man, or Mob Psycho 100. Theoretically, if studios consolidated their efforts, we could be looking at more shows looking more beautiful, but we would still have variation between what we see, and the human mind would always compare them. I'm not saying we need to rethink our opinions on shows like X-Arm, but I'm saying we should be thinking of anime like other forms of media. Yes, while these parts all create a whole product, reducing their relevancy to just those parts misses out on how those parts interact with each other on different levels.